Democratic socialists riding high off recent primary wins, now thinking beyond the midterms as progressive Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez emerges as a party favorite for the presidency for 2028. One DSA member telling the Washington Post, "We've all known Alex. We've all organized with her over the years. This is the first time in 10 years I feel she has a real shot at the presidency." That's one quote from a Washington Post piece. So let's bring in Karl Rove, Fox News contributor and former senior advisor to President George W. Bush, and Tezlyn Figaro, former Bernie Sanders advisor. Great to have both of you with us today. I want to play a little bit more of this Matthew Smith, Fordham Young Democrats Socialists of America. So this is part of their organization and where the energy is in the party right now, perhaps. Let's play this.
Everybody else, we're running on neoliberal policies, not really acknowledging that things needed to change, just small reforms. But Trump came in and told them, you are suffering. I see that this is not working for you, and here's how I'm going to fix it. I view him as a fascist. I do not support him in any sense, but he did go to the working class and tell them, you are suffering. I see you. This is how I'm going to change it. Democrats never did that.
Tezlyn, is he right about that?
Well, Democrats have always needed to improve as far as talking to, folks who are in the middle class, the working class. That's fair. Democrats have constantly been told that they need to change the party. However, I would say that I have my criticisms with DSA as well. They still need to do some outreach, especially as relates to Black voters. We'll see how it turns out tomorrow in Michigan. But I will give them this word of advice. However it turns out, they certainly don't need to call Black voters low information voters if it doesn't go their way.
Let's take a look at a poll here, Karl. This is a CNN poll, and this is of Democratic aligned, so Dem-leaning independent voters. And the question is, would you nominate a Democratic Socialist candidate? 65% say enthusiastic or they're okay with it. Only 35% say that this future makes them uneasy or upset. Is this where this party is moving right now in terms of the candidates that they will nominate going forward?
Well, it's been where they've been winning some primaries earlier this year in deep blue parts of the country. I'm not certain it says much about their ability to win in the general election. We're going to have several contests in all likelihood. One is going to be in Maine with a DSA fellow traveler, another one, Abdul Saeed in Michigan, who's enthusiastically backed by the DSA, and then the 8th District of Colorado, where a DSA-affiliated left-winger has won the Democratic nomination in the district. Donald Trump carried by 2 points. So how these DSA or socialist candidates, Democratic socialist candidates, perform in parts of the country that are not deep blue is going to be a test of their electoral ability.
Let's listen, Tezlyn, to this from Jim Carville over the weekend, talking about Mamdani and talking about Hassan Piker and whether or not he sees a future for himself as a Democrat, Carville, in the party if it goes this way. Watch.
I'm not sure what to understand what Mamdani is doing, but to talk about the larger Democratic Party post the election in Michigan going forward, I am not going to be in the same party with Hassan Piker. I can tell you that right now. If he becomes a force in the Democratic Party, I'm out of here. I have no intention of ever being in the same political party with that guy. Now, I think that a majority, overwhelming majority of Democrats agree with me.
Do you agree with him, Tezlyn?
No, how does he know? Jim Carville, hey, guess what, Jim? Get out. We can just start calling him Get Out Jim. If the Democrat Party wants to reform how they're moving, if DSA, or I would just say progressives as a whole, because I don't like to just put this on DSA, because again, I have my criticism with them as well. But there is a progressive wing of the party that is actually organizing, that is actually winning elections. James Carville, if I understand, he hasn't won election. He won an election finally in his 40s. No disrespect, but he doesn't run how the party moves. Now, again, I think there's a big tent. There's a room for everybody, whether it's moderates, center, or left, but you can't get upset that progressives are actually organizing and winning. And you certainly as hell can't get upset at the New York mayor for actually being a winner. He actually did organize millions of people to go to the polls. He beat the establishment. He beat all of their favorite candidates, and he's doing very well. And again, I have my criticisms with him as well, but he's the winner. Mamdani gets to set the tone, but no, it does not mean that it will work in the South. It does not mean that it will work in the Midwest. And I think Democrats are smart enough to know that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Karl. I mean, there are some similarities to 2016 when Republicans thought that, President Trump wouldn't last, that the candidate wasn't going to go the distance, that MAGA was just sort of the outer fringe of the party, and that in the end, sort of the base of the Republican Party would prevail. But President Trump was able to reach working voters, people who had felt forgotten in this country. And you hear that young man talking about his work at the college level in organizing. He feels like that's what's happening on the Democrat side right now.
Well, I'd say two things. First of all, anybody who cannot condemn Hassan Piker doesn't belong on the political stage. Here's a man who said the United States deserved 9/11 and is a far left-winger, but his hatred for Israel and his disdain for the United States ought to disqualify him. The other thing I'd say is, look, Mamdani won in New York. 50.4% of the vote in a city that is 66% registered Democrats and 16% registered Republicans and the rest independents. I mean, how can that guy hope to win in a country that has a 50-50 split like we have today?
Yeah, well, that's why everybody's watching Michigan and Colorado very closely, as you brought up earlier. So we'll see what happens this week. Karl Rove, Tezlyn Figaro, thank you both very much. Great to have you with us.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.